then let's do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Call the meeting to order. Call the meeting of the Mobile Home Rent Control Board of Howell Township to order. Ms. Doran, would you read the opening statement?
Yep. Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular meeting of the Mobile Home Rent Stabilization and Control Board of the Township of Howell was provided in the following manner. By the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on December 13th, 2019. By forwarding a copy of said notice to the Asbury Park Press on December 13th, 2019. By filing a copy of said notice with the Township Clerk's Office on December 13th, 2019. Public participation at this meeting is permitted upon invitation of the chairperson. On November 18th, 2020, a notice was sent to the Asbury Park Press that this meeting would be held remotely using communication equipment due to COVID-19 restrictions. Roll call, Mr. Cantor.
Here.
Ms. Jordan has been excused. Mr. Quatrano has been excused. Mr. Stanton has been excused. Mr. Orozco.
Here.
Mr. Rouet.
Here.
And Mr. Russo has been excused.
Okay. Can you tell if there are any other people in the lobby or waiting for this meeting, or they're?
Yes, they're members of the public. So
Okay. That's what I was asking. Okay. Can we all stand and salute the flag, please? Or imagine a flag in your hearts. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Do we have minutes?
yes. The minutes from July 12th meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes, Mr. Way or Mr. Orozco?
Yeah.
Mr. Way, would you second that for me, please?
Mr. Chairman, I wonder, since I'm voting tonight, but the minutes of that meeting was for Oak Hills Rent.
Oh, yeah. Can I second it?
You're a member of the board, I would assume so, but
I'll second it.
leave that to the legal.
If there are no objections to the minutes passing, then we'll just rule the minutes passed. Mr. Clark, any problem with that?
No, we can go forward with that as long as, I mean, there's
no issues.
right.
Okay, we're good. Any correspondence, Ms. Doran?
Yes, we have vacancy decontrol notices from Oak Hill, Green Acres, and Engelin.
Okay,
That's it.
okay. And then is there any old business? I assume none.
Nope, none.
All right, then let's move into the, we have a resolution to approve, again, the resolution to approve the Oak Hill Mobile Home Park increase that we passed at the last meeting. I imagine we just take a roll call of Mr. Orozco and me.
Okay.
I mean, motion would be ridiculous, so let's just roll call it.
Roll call, okay. So Mr. Cantor
Yes,
and Mr. Orozco.
Yes.
so passed. Okay, and let's move to the hearing, please. Is there anything else that we need to do before the hearing?
No.
Okay, Mr. Hanlon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So tonight I'm appearing, so for the record, Christopher Hanlon from Hanlon, Neiman and Wright. I'm here tonight appearing on behalf of Green Acres MHP LLC, Green Acres Mobile Home Park. We haven't been in front of the board for 2 years. We're here looking for a 5% increase. And we, as part of our package that we've submitted to the board, we've indicated that we've noticed the tenants of a tax surcharge increase. Sorry, I'm working with two screens here. Bear with me. Of $3.08 as a result of a $4,290 tax increase between 2018 and 2019. Again, those seem like years ago, but the 2018 taxes were the subject matter of our last application. That was the last time we were before the board. I believe we have submitted an affidavit indicating that we have served the application upon the tenants by certified mail return receipt requested. And we have also posted notice of this meeting with a special notification related to its virtual process and logon information. Those notifications are attached to our proof of service. I assume based on our proof of service, the board will exercise jurisdiction over the application.
Mr. Clark, do you have those receipts? Because I don't.
We have received them. They're as Mr. Neiman has stated, so the board can exercise jurisdiction over the application.
Great, okay. Then,
Thank you, Mr. Clark. All right, I have Bill Widmer here, who's going to testify for my client. So I guess he should be sworn in. Mr. Cantor?
yes, Mr. Clark, and actually, there's two witnesses here. If you would swear them in both at the same time, then we can do
Yes.
that.
If the witnesses would raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll do their names and business addresses one at a time. And when you question.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Mr. Widmer, what is your business address?
My office is at 900 Rawway Avenue in Avenel, New Jersey.
Okay, and by whom are you employed?
Lakeshore Management.
And what's the relationship between Lakeshore Management and Green Acres MHP LLC?
Lakeshore is the parent company.
What's your job title with Lakeshore?
I'm the regional manager for the Northeast portfolio.
Okay, and does the Northeast portfolio, is that referencing a portfolio of various mobile home parks that are owned by the affiliated companies?
Yes,
How many mobile home parks do you have responsibility for management of?
as of today, I believe 18.
And does that include Green Acres?
Yes,
As it relates to Green Acres, what are your other job responsibilities?
basic operations of the communities, whether that's delinquency, community appearance, home sales, meeting occupancy targets, and just general operation matters.
Okay, Debbie O'Hare is also on the screen with us. What's Ms. O'Hare's position with the company?
She's the community manager at Green Acres, and as of this week, she's also, we have a new acquisition in Avenel, New Jersey, and she's devoting some of her time to this community as well.
Okay, how long has she been the community manager for Green Acres?
I'm going to say 4 years. Debbie can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, 4 years.
Okay, and how long have you been the regional manager for Green Acres?
Next month will be 3 years.
Okay, are you familiar with the application that we filed with this board?
Yes,
And did you supply me with the rent numbers and expense numbers that are contained in it?
I did. Yes.
And do all of those facts and figures come from the business records of the company?
Yes.
So as it relates to those numbers, so rent numbers and the limited expenses that we'll be looking at tonight, do they accurately represent the operation of the Green Acres Mobile Home Park?
Yes.
When was the last time this property received any rent increase?
It was January of 2019. I believe we had the hearing in late 2018, and it was implemented in January of 2019.
Okay. Our application before the board seeks a 5% increase of the base rent, correct?
Yes,
And consistent with other applications that have come before this board, we've submitted some expense documentation that you'd like the board to give consideration to, correct?
yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to try and do a share screen here and get that up. I assume everyone has these records. They were submitted last week. Can everyone see what I put up on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I will scroll this at your direction, Mr. Widmer. And I apologize. Let's see if we can address the size here. So this is a little more legible. What are we looking at, Mr. Widmer?
So that's a listing of invoices with the corresponding dates, the invoice numbers, the dollar amounts, and the general scope of work for 2019 and 2020 for the community.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, these pages, this document package is paginated. I put specific page references at the bottom of each page. So if anyone has a question about each page, we can be directed in that fashion. So it looks like the first 2 pages is a compilation of invoices. Is that correct, Mr. Widmer?
Yes.
I apologize, I'm moving things around. I'll try and stop that, except at your direction. And the 2 pages containing the listing, did you prepare that listing?
I did.
All right, and it references invoices which are attached as part of this package, correct?
Yes.
So the support for each line item here is found as part of the exhibit.
Correct.
So would you explain the exhibit now to the board?
The various.
Okay, go ahead and explain it to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, however you'd like to go through it.
Okay.
And if you want me to page to exhibit, let me know.
Can you go back to the first page? There we go. So the first grouping is environmental and technical services. That's our engineering services. They typically design our new septic. So they prepare applications for the TWA. They help guide us for repairs. And those are essentially the invoices for the work that they've done with us from 2020 and 2019. A couple of them you might see in the scope of work where the same lot numbers are repeated. And just to note that, for example, $811 for 53 and 55 Henry. And then if you go down a few more spots, he bills us again for 53 and 55 Henry. So the smaller amount is his down payment invoice, and then the next one would be the remainder of his invoice. So just in case you're seeing something listed twice, that's what would explain that.
All right, so let's, without referencing a specific item, and we can come back and do that if you want or the board wants. Generally speaking, what is the work that is being performed in the mobile home park by environmental and technical services?
They're designing septic replacements, repairs, and preparing applications for the TWA or the various agencies that have to permit the septics.
Okay, and the TWA you're referring to, that's a type of permit you get from the State Department of Environmental Protection?
Correct.
It actually stands for, I think, Treatment Works Application.
I learned something new today. So,
Okay, yeah, all right. In any event, those all relate to your septic redesigns, correct?
yes,
So let's set the stage here. The mobile home park is 116 approved lots. Is that correct?
yes,
And all of them are, those lots have, hopefully, when they're full, there are some vacancies, have homes on them that have to connect to a sewage system. And in this case, in Green Acres, it's all septic, correct?
yes.
And do you know how many septic systems there are out there at the mobile home park?
Well, generally, there's one septic for every 2 homes, so Debbie can correct me, but doing the math, so we have probably around 55 to 60 septics.
Okay, and do you know why there's this much work being performed on the septic systems out there?
But in some cases, the seepage pits aren't working at complete capacity. So rather than having the repeated expense of constant pumping, we're pursuing replacement. And that's the case for these 2 or 3 that are listed right here.
Okay.
Mr. Whitmer, how
If
old
anyone
are,
has,
I'm sorry, how old are the septic systems?
It's hard for me to know how many they've replaced over the years. Since I've been with the company, we replaced 4 in 2019. Debbie might know what we replaced prior to that, but I would imagine several of them are original to the community.
Okay.
okay, moving on your list, why don't you continue your explanation of it?
Okay, the next grouping is Atlantic Septic and Sewer, and they are the folks that actually come do the actual replacements. After the engineers and the permitting is done, they do the physical work. What you have listed there is 4 replacements and 1 repair.
Okay, is it okay if I scroll down?
Yes.
Okay, continue your explanation of this exhibit, please.
Sure. The next vendor is Greg Smith Tree Service. So there's 2 invoices there, $23.99 each. It's for general tree trimming, removal, and stump grinding. Could be common area. There's a lot of really large old trees there. I mean, typically residents are responsible for tree removal. There's been a couple cases where we've stepped in knowing that it's going to be a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 removal, and we've just gone ahead and done that. So. The next grouping is Pickwick Well Drilling. That's for the well pump house, various repairs over the last 2 years. The next is Cardone Electric. One is for replacing 100 amp electric service, and then our generator at the pump house needed to be replaced as well. The last one is A General Plumbing, and that was for a sewer line replacement. So the grand total of all of those for the last 2 years is $107,682.
Okay. We'd be happy to answer any questions that any board members have about any of the specific attachments, Mr. Chairman, but other than that, I wasn't going to go through each page. If that's acceptable to the board.
Mr. Rouet or Mr. Orozco, any questions?
That's okay. No.
Yes, I have just one question. Mr. Widmer, you've been there 3 years, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And what you're working with, is it part of an ongoing program of improvements? I noticed that you've done a lot of tree work, signage, painting, these infrastructure improvements, the well work, the septic work. It seems like it is part of a plan of making improvements on an ongoing, consistent basis. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, we always try and stay ahead of the repairs. I'll tell you that prior to my arrival, there was probably more deferred stuff than I would have liked to see. Debbie and I work really hard to get things through the approval process. We've sort of learned what the approval process is with the company, and I think we're more successful over the last couple of years in getting things approved than maybe in the past. But you know, my philosophy is if it's broken, we need to fix it. So I don't sort of live with these things and muddle along. You know, we got to take care of the community.
Thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Mr. Widmer, there's a general concern these days about tenants and rent because of the pandemic. A lot of it's in the news, for example, but I just wanted to give the board some perspective concerning what actual operations are like in this context. So have you been able to look at your rent roll related to how many tenants are paying their rent as opposed to how many tenants are having difficulty doing so because of the pandemic?
Yes. So it's been pretty consistent from month to month since the start of the pandemic. We have, for example, in November, we had only 3 residents that didn't pay. The remaining 110 have, by the end of the month, have 0 balance. So, you know, it appears as though they're able to pay their rent. Of the 3 that are having trouble, one person, it's not related to COVID, and we're working with that person to get that caught up. We also have a hardship program that we've implemented company-wide since the start of the pandemic, which I'm actually in charge of company-wide, where we work with residents that appear to be struggling, and we set up payment plans. It could be as long as, you know, 18 months to pay a balance. So in one case, we're working with one resident that has a balance. He's been reluctant to get on the hardship program, so I don't know what the long-term prognosis is for that resident. And then the 3rd resident has secured help from a charity. She has a commitment from a charity. So, you know, that's that one will be resolved. So, you know, I know that the timing isn't great, but it appears as though the majority of the residents are able to keep up with their rent payments. And lastly, like you said earlier, we haven't taken an increase in 2 years. So, but we are mindful of the challenge it is for everybody. And, you know, when the situation calls for us to be compassionate and to help, we're ready to step in and help in any way that we can.
Okay, thank you. The additional data we should submit under the ordinance, Mr. Chairman, includes CPI data. I apologize for getting that over late. I did submit a CPI publication today. It's what it reflects is that the CPI, all items for New York through October 2020 over a 1-year period rose 1.7%. And the housing index, rent for primary residents, was the same number, 1.7%. So we've submitted that information to the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Widmer, we should just touch base with this. The mobile home park has had its license for each of the last 2 years since this property has been in front of the rent board, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
That's 2019 and 2020. Both years the license was issued, right?
yes, yes,
And are you aware of any code violations having existed during that 2-year period?
no,
And so does that include today? Are there any code violations that you're aware of existing in the community today?
no.
no, none.
Okay. Bear with me, Mr. Chairman. Those are all the questions I have of Mr. Widmer, Mr. Chairman, and I have Ms. O'Hare here just to respond to inquiries by the board or by tenants. So I don't have any direct questions of her right now.
Does Mr. Rouet or Mr. Roscoe, you have any questions for that witness?
Yeah.
No.
No, okay. Let's hear from the tenants and then we'll see if that's called for. Okay, so if you're Mr. Hanlon, are you ready for the public comment section?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Doran, we're going to attempt to open this up to the public.
Okay. And just attention to the public, just use the raise your hand feature on the bottom of the screen. The first person we're going to do is John Nelson. Just unmute.
Mr. Nelson, can you hear us? I went back on mute.
Yeah.
There he is. Don't hear him.
Hold on. Let's see.
No, he's not. I don't think he's on mute. Might be a volume issue.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Try turning up your volume, Mr. Nelson. Yeah, we still can't hear you.
Sarah, is your microphone working on your end, Mr. Nelson? I'm not hearing.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Is that any better, sir?
Perfect.
Yes.
Oh, good. It's got to be the headphone.
Okay.
I am sorry. This is the first time I've done a Zoom call, so what can I say?
Well, thank you for doing that. Mr. Clark, do you need to swear? in?
I'll swear him in. Mr. Nelson, would you raise your right hand, please? You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you state your name and address for the record, please, sir?
John L. Nelson, 43 Henry Circle, Howell.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I don't know where he is. Oh, there he is. He's over here. I get him. The lawyer did not send me the one with a signed return piece. So I thought I'd let you know about that. If you paid for it, get your money back. And last year, I was asked to get stuff out of the way and so that they could do the testing for the ground. And it is not done yet. at my house. The septic stuff is not done, and Debbie doesn't know what's going on because she doesn't have contact with those people. What's the status? Anybody know at Lakeshore?
John, I told you it's with the DEP.
Well, if it's a governmental thing, we'll never get it done. Otherwise, the place has been better kept than when I first moved in. And Debbie, worth every penny you're paying her, Bill, and then some.
I'm sorry, Debbie, would you do me a favor and just go through the timeline of the submission of the DEPs, just so I can get an idea of how long it normally takes to repair the septic system from when you identify an issue?
It could take many months, Glenn. It depends. Like with John, it's still with the DEP. We have to wait for their approval.
Right, I know.
Basically, our hands are tied.
Okay.
I understand, Mr. Cantor, I do understand that. And believe me, the work that these guys have done to keep my septic down low is just phenomenal.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Oh, yeah. But again, I'd like to know so I can get some plans made to do stuff for them, to move anything they need to move out of the way,
Okay.
you know?
What is your address?
4-3 Henry.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah, down the back corner by the woods.
gotcha.
So I will just note for the record for the board as well that we've had dealings with the DEP internally at the township. And as a result of COVID and furloughs and that, they're extremely backlogged right now. So it's probably not a surprise that this hasn't happened quicker.
Well, this started before the COVID, much before the COVID. And I appreciate that fact because it's a pain to get people that want to work, that wanted to go out and can't go because of COVID. But at least they should have told you something. We'll come up on August, and I would bet you guys money that we will not hear back from them then. And I guess that's about it, except once again, looks like you guys picked up a good handyman too this time.
We hope so. I mean, just so you know, we're as anxious to get them replaced because pumping is not cheap, so.
Tell me about it. Yeah, and it's just as bad when it decides, well, you know, I'm not going to work today and just overflow. That's bad too.
That is. Okay.
I'm finished, gentlemen. How do I get out of this and just watch what goes on?
We'll take care of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Hold on. All right. And the next person, Linda Lace.
Ms. Lace, can you hear us?
She's still on mute. Let's see.
Well, we know it works because Mr. Nelson was able to talk to us. We'd ask everybody to go to Mr. Nelson's house.
John is a computer whiz, John Nelson.
Oh, he is?
He is. He helps me set up my computer in the office.
Oh, cool.
Plus, We prefer everyone not go there until the septic is done, Mr. Chairman.
It looks like she logged off.
Okay. Do we have anybody else?
No, nobody else.
Okay. Well, if she comes back on, then let us know. But seeing no more members of the public, I'll declare the public comment section closed. Do Mr. Ruway or Mr. Roscoe, do you have any questions for Mr. Hanlon or any of the other two participants?
No.
Okay, well then I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, just one closing comment, very briefly.
I'm sorry, I didn't offer you
As you
that.
know, the other two communities.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So, is it okay?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. So just very briefly, to refresh your recollection, the other two communities this year received 5% approvals. And obviously you're not bound by that, but we would ask you to consider that we think one of the things that the board should consider appropriate is to have a consistent, what I call a housing policy, because that's basically what you're doing in applying this ordinance. You're creating the township's housing policy. And certainly in this case, since this particular property owner is in full compliance with all codes and has obviously been working hard on the property as reflected by our expenses. Thankfully, we've had one tenant come in and corroborate that. That always helps. Even though we're in the middle of the pandemic, I'd ask you to give consideration to this perspective. It looks like, thankfully, most of our residents are weathering this storm, doing okay. In addition, we have a landlord here who has implemented a health program across the board for all their properties. As Mr. Widmer indicated, they try to work with tenants who do get into trouble. Despite all of that stuff, at the same time, this landlord is still being what's called a housing provider. They're providing a home to all the tenants who live at Green Acres. They have to. And as part of what they have to do, they have to continue to provide services. And those expenses aren't being held in check because of the pandemic. For example, the township didn't say, "Oh, don't worry about your taxes this year." They've collected them and they've insisted on collecting them, and they have to, because they have to provide services to all their residents. The point is, this is a housing provider who's doing the right thing. Its expenses are going up. And therefore, we think this application is appropriate, even though we're in the middle of this pandemic, especially in light of the fact that this provider hasn't been before the board in 2 years. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. May I have a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion that a 5% increase is granted.
Mr. Roscoe, may I have a second?
Yes,
I have a motion and a second. Would we please take a roll call, Ms. Doran?
Yes, Mr. Cantor,
Yes, with the stipulation that you follow up with the DEP on Mr. Nelson's septic system, please.
Mr. Orozco,
yes.
and Mr. Ruway.
Yes.
So moved. The motion passes. Thank you for coming before us in such a difficult situation, Mr. Widmer, Ms. O'Hire, and Mr. Hanlon.
Thank you.
Thank you for all volunteering your time during this difficult time, even though we're still at home. But I have to say this, though, Mr. Orozco, I do a lot of Zoom hearings. I think your background is the best one I've seen so far.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else to come before the board, Ms. Doran?
Nope.
Mr. Clark, we good?
We are good.
And I'll entertain a motion to close.
Make that motion.
Second.
And I'm in favor, so passed. Very much for your time. Have a very Merry Christmas and a happy
Merry
holiday.
Christmas.
Thank
Thank
you.
you to all of you.
Well,
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.